All right, it may not have been the start of the season Mets fans have wanted, but who cares? We still got a lot of baseball left. So I'm bringing back my guy, Tyler Ward, your favorite Mets content creator. We got to get his thoughts about the weekend. And of course, we're going to look ahead to the Marlins series. Ward E, what's going on, my man?
Brandon, how are you, my friend?
Feeling good, man. Just a little, after all that hype and that expectation, feeling a little bit down after the weekend. Obviously, they dropped 2 out of 3. But what really got me is they only scored a total of 5 runs in that series. Meanwhile, things were just completely bombing over out in the Bronx. After all that hype during spring training, were you surprised that they started the season off like this and lost that series down in Houston?
I mean, if I'm a true Mets fan, I feel like I should be far from surprised if they start the year underwhelming, especially on the offensive end. This is the same team that started 0-5 last year, 11 games below 500. And I understand we got Juan Soto now, but let's understand the context of that series, right? Juan Soto did his thing plenty outside the strikeout against Hader to end game one. Served up a home run to right in game two, had a double off the wall in game three for the Mets only hit. So Soto has been as advertised. The Mets pitching has been as advertised for the most part of a continuation from spring training, but the offense for the most part has yet to get in a groove, which if you followed along spring training, outside of a decent stretch of games, like 4 or 5 day stretch, they really didn't hit all that much throughout the entire course of spring. So I think it's a collective thing where the guys just need to get in a groove now offensively because Soto is on another level. Everyone else, for the most part, needs to get on theirs.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Juan Soto in a little bit. I think a lot of people, because everyone's so drawn to what was happening in the Bronx with the Yankees and their offense, and they're talking about how the Mets bats really didn't show up. But how big was the bullpen?
Bullpen was fantastic for the Mets. I mean, pitching collectively was great in that first series in Houston, but especially in the bullpen end, I mean, they had over 7+ shutout innings. And it was all thanks in large part to guys like Kowalski Brazaban, who, mind you, cracked the Mets bullpen on the final day that he was eligible to do so. Him and Max Kranick alike came out and gave the Mets some massive outings that we saw in not only the first 2 games, but then Max Kranick to get huge outs on Yordan Alvarez and then to get out of that bases loaded jam for Jose Budo there in the finale or so. Outside them, Reed Garrett was absolutely stellar for the Mets when called upon. Ryan Stank against his former team got the job done. AJ Mintermay's debut. The list goes on from there. Bullpen, pitching collectively, they did their job. Now it's time for the bats to do theirs.
Yeah, the bullpen, 10 and two-thirds scoreless innings in that series against the
Nice.
Astros. So that was big. That's obviously a positive to take away from that series. All right, back to Soto. Reached base 7 times in series. He homered. Does it look like Steve Cohen is going to get a nice return on his investment when it comes to Soto?
You know, at first I thought it was really difficult for a team to get any type of ROI when you invest the millions of dollars that you saw the Dodgers do with Shohei Ohtani. But after seeing how much Shohei Ohtani positively impacted them in year one, I have a sneaky feeling that Juan Soto, not to the same degree as actually dominated the entire country of Japan with the market, but having such a big market of his own, especially here in the States, I think Juan Soto is going to continue to be as advertised. And yes, that is a lofty price, but I do firmly believe that hopefully, at least here in year one, he's going to live up to it because not only is Soto on that $765 million deal, but this season alone, with his signing bonus, he's making right around $100 million gross. So big bag in year one for Soto at the young age of 26. Hopefully he can give the Mets, if not his best season yet, then definitely up there.
Yeah, I just hope he doesn't have to carry that offense like he was having to do this past series. And we saw guys like Brendan Nimmo struggle, Polar Bear Pete struggle, Vientos, Francisco Lindor, another all-star. Well, he went 0 for 11 in that series. He started off slow last year, Wardy. He ended up turning it up, and he ended the season in the race for the NL MVP. So he doesn't know why the slow start. Do you have the why on why he went 0 for 11?
Yeah, I think this is just a continuation of what Lindor has been for a good chunk of his career now. I mean, if you go back to his very early seasons in 2016, 2017, he got off to hotter starts then. But mind you, that's, north of a decade ago now as we're looking at things. So Lindor at this point in his career, he's just trying to make sure that one, he can stay healthy for the full 162, especially with last season derailing a little bit there with his back injury, unfortunately, by literally carrying the team on his back, pun intended and all. But to see what he has done now for the Mets entering this season, I remember his initial interview that he had heading into spring, saying that his approach was actually different a bit this year, and on one hand with kind of a bit more of a faster pace, but not all in at the same time. So I think for Lindor, he's going to continue to have that slow rise to his stardom throughout the course of the year, but especially now after welcoming his son into this world as of this past 24 hours. So congratulations to the Lindor family. Maybe that's going to be a nice early spark, because there has been a trend every single time that he has had one of his kids born in the previous 2 years with his daughters. He's went on an absolute tear of a home run spree. So if you're going to hammer Lindor, it's absolutely now the time to do so.
Have kids hit homers. I love it. Looking forward to this next series. They got the Marlins. How do they get things back on track?
Oh, I mean, it's against the Marlins, so that's where you need to take advantage, right? This is a team that's in a full rebuild slash retool mode. So when you look at the matchups in this series, especially, you got guys like David Pearson there in game one. The key pitching matchup of the series is game two, Kodai Senga versus Sandy Alcantara. Sandy, a former Cy Young caliber pitcher that we know, coming back from Tommy John or so this past year plus, throws absolute gas. Senga's just trying to stay healthy and be a Cy Young caliber pitcher like he was, getting some award votes that we saw in his rookie year for the Mets a couple years ago. And then game three, that's going to be a key matchup with Clay Holmes making his second start of the year. Let's see how he rebounds from the first one. So the Bats, I think this is a prime opportunity for them to step up against a lesser team in Miami, in a ballpark where it can certainly fly out there. And for the pitching, it should hopefully knock down would be a continuation of what we've seen for the most part to begin the season.
Really quick, Wardy, if the Mets players were using a torpedo bat, how do you think the fan base would feel about that?
I mean, I think if you actually understand the rules of the game, there shouldn't be any issues with it, right? I mean, we already have had guys for over the past multiple years start the torpedo bats, but because the Brewers got rocked and Nestor Cortez simply couldn't handle going back home facing his former team, this wouldn't really be much of a conversation. So the Bronx Bombers quite literally put this on the map, but this is not a brand new thing. It's just more emphasized now. If this happens with the Mets, that's fine, but it's all indicative on each and every player. Not every player needs to have a torpedo style bat. It depends on if they're getting jammed constantly versus not. So for all those reasons, whatever's going to benefit your team, I'm all for it. So if the Mets start having more torpedo bats, that's fine, as long as it leads to success.
All right. Appreciate your time, Wardy.
Thank you, Brandon. Always a pleasure.